Everyone, it's 7 o'clock. I am going to call tonight's meeting to order. I wanted to start with roll call. Counselor Schoen.
Present.
Counselor Mellon.
Present.
Counselor Tulowitzki.
Present.
Counselor Kulturitis. And Counselor Gardner. We do have a quorum this evening, but we have an unusual situation in our president and our vice president are not at tonight's meeting. So we went to Robert's rules and we discovered that we can open the floor to nominations for tonight's meeting and we can have someone run it. Is it pro temp? So I open the floor to nominations for tonight's acting president.
Our treasurer, miss, it would be my honor to nominate Dr. Kenneth Schoen to act as chairman pro tem for this evening's proceedings.
Do I have a second?
I will second that motion.
Counselor Schoen, do you accept the nomination?
Accept.
Can we do a vote? Will you go, Counselor Schoen? Yes or no? Oh, you can still vote on yourself. Yes or no?
Oh,
Yes
yes.
or no? I don't want to.
Yes.
Yes. I think that's gonna be tonight's meeting. It's gonna be a little more relaxed.
need to ask for the other votes though.
Counselor Mellon.
Yes.
There,
Oh,
and Counselor Tulowitzki.
yes.
All right, congratulations. I turn the gavel over to Counselor Schoen for the evening.
Then I suggest we stand for a moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is the public comment. If anybody has comments that they would like to make to the council, we invite you to come forward. We kindly ask that all public comments be limited to 2 minutes maximum per person, or 5 minutes for a group spokesperson. Please keep your comments civil and constructive and related to public policy issues. In the event questions are posed to the council, we will note your question in the meeting minutes and refer the questions to the appropriate department or staff to follow up. Would anybody like to address the council?
Mike Dumovic, 1833 Tulip Lane. One of the things on your agenda is just traffic calming. I had a great experience of coming down White Oak and finding out about the speed bumps that were there. I wasn't paying attention on the first one, but I did on the second. I would like to see something similar to that done on Franklin by Chestnut, both directions, and over also on White Oak and Franklin. People think the stop sign means stop the other person. And if they had something like that there, it would at least make them slow down and hopefully stop. Too many times I've gone through there and I've been the one that's supposed to go, but the other guy, he wasn't gonna stop. So again, with the traffic calming, I'd like to see something like that there. And one other one, can they get rid of those hidden traffic lights there on Harrison and Ridge Road? The ones that you can't see till you're up to them to tell whether it's red, green, or yellow?
That's a feature, not a bug, so you see.
Oh, I know it's a feature, but it's a crappy feature.
One of the elements of looking at the redesign of Ridge Road, we'll be looking at that Harrison intersection. It's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Certainly beyond my technical abilities. That's why we hire the pros. But yes, we are going to look at that.
Okay.
For Franklin, Chestnut, Franklin, and White Oak. I live over around those parts. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mhm.
We will run that through the speed team, and I think that we can design a solution that'll meet your needs.
Okay, thank you.
Would anybody else like to address the council? Not seeing anybody, we'll declare that part of the meeting closed and move to the consent agenda. There are, ladies and gentlemen, a number of things on the consent agenda, and because we only have 3 members of the council here, we will have to vote on them separately. But if I may suggest, we can have one motion and then do A, B, C separate votes, rather than have half a dozen different motions. Does that work, Dave?
I mean, we're paying homage to the ghost of clerk treasurer past, but. You know, I think what Wendy was referring to earlier was a motion to approve the minutes, a motion to. I mean, I think you can do one motion for it all still, because it's not an ordinance, it's not whatever here, but. However, whatever the council's pleasure. If it's only 4 items, so.
Speaking for the council, I think we want to be aware of people's time and not take up time that isn't necessary.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
I assume we have to do a roll call vote?
Yes, please. Counselor Schoen,
Yes.
Counselor Mellon,
Yes.
Counselor Tulowitzki.
Yes.
And moving on to old business. Ordinance 1903, our earth covered positions. It's the second reading. Are there any changes from our first reading?
There are no changes from the first reading. This only puts in writing the positions that are covered by the Public Employees Retirement Fund. No positions were added, no additional funds are being spent. It's purely writing.
Any discussion on the issue?
Mr. President, go ahead, were you gonna speak? Okay.
Yes.
Were you gonna, I thought you were gonna say something, I apologize.
Are the microphones on?
They are.
Okay.
Mr. President, I make a motion to adopt ordinance 1903 on second reading as presented.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? The roll call vote?
Counselor Mellon,
Yes.
Counselor Tulowitzki.
Yes.
Counselor Schoen.
Yes. A second item under old business is ordinance 1904, the Broadmoor speed limit reduction. And it was also a second reading, and as I remember, there's no changes to that.
There's just a slight modification in the date that it becomes effective. The effective date is, will be June 9th, which is after adoption. If we adopt it this evening, it will go to the Times to be published tomorrow. And it'll get published in Friday's paper, so it will go into effect on Friday when it's published in the paper. The plan is to change all the speed limit signs, et cetera, on Monday. That way, if someone doesn't read their paper till late.
Okay.
So that's the only change.
Your motion?
Mr.
Right.
Mr. President, I move to adopt ordinance 1904 on second reading.
I second the motion.
Ready for roll call?
Roll call.
I was just,
Discussion.
yeah, a little discussion. I think this is the first time in a long time that any speed limits have been changed in town. This is a road that makes a lot of sense, and it is in concert with the comments that were made earlier about traffic safety and traffic calming throughout the town. So I rise in support of this ordinance.
For somebody who lives near Broadmoor Avenue, I am as well. Clerk treasurer?
Counselor Mellon,
Yes.
Counselor Tulowitzki.
Yes.
Counselor Schoen.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to new business. The first item is a Monarch City project, additional horticultural services. We have a proposal. I assume the proposal has to be adopted by the council.
Yes, I would look for a recommendation to authorize the town manager to enter into a service agreement with Dolly Foster operating as Hort for You for on-call horticultural services. You may remember earlier in the spring, Ms. Foster, you provided authorization for Ms. Foster to host a series of lunch and learns for parks and public works maintenance staff to talk about pollinators to facilitate the Monarch City initiative. You know, what's a weed, what's not a weed, things like that. And in those conversations, it became very clear that there are other questions that we don't have the technical specifics to know how to answer. And there are people in our community who do, and Ms. Foster is one of them. For example, I'm thinking of a group of residents in Hill and Vale that want to beautify the median strip on Bering. And we've talked about what we can do. Ms. Foster is a horticultural expert, and she can help us identify what plantings would be best there that would not require an onerous amount of maintenance and would be aesthetically a step up from the kind of splotchy grass that seems to thrive there right now.
I would like to compliment the public works staff that gave up, several members gave up their lunch hours to come to educational meetings about pollinator gardens and things of that sort, something we haven't done in town before, except on individuals doing it in their own yards. And we had some very good questions from the staff members, and I thought it was very well received. So I'm looking forward to this new venture for the town.
Mr. President, I would move to authorize the town manager to enter into a services agreement with Deli Foster for on-call horticultural services.
I second the motion.
Ready?
Counselor Mellon,
Yes.
Counselor Tulowitzki,
Yes.
Counselor Schoen.
Yes. Going on to letter B, traffic calming, pedestrian flashing beacon on Holman Avenue at Sunnyside Park. Mike, this is somewhat related to the same issue you were talking about. A number of cars have sped past Sunnyside Park, making it difficult for kids to cross the street to use the park. And so one of the things that was citizen oriented at first, or at least originated, was to put some kind of devices in the street to let drivers know that there is a park here and people may be crossing the street. And so I'm looking forward to this. Do I hear a motion?
Mr.
Yes.
President,
You can go ahead. That's fine.
I move to approve the installation of a flashing pedestrian beacon at Sunnyside Park by Midwestern Electric LLC for the quoted price of $18,950.
I'll second the motion.
And any discussion?
I would just say that, I support it here and possibly other places going forward. It's unfortunate that it seems to be a new way of life for a lot of people. I do what I want, when I want, how I want, and it's affecting everybody so negatively. And like, we have, they said, no parking signs, but people park there. You have to put up big boulders in the alley so people don't when they're told not to. So hopefully this will just be one more thing to hopefully get people to.
And the odd thing is there is parking near the park. It would only be an extra 10 steps for people to not park in front of the park itself. But to park in front of some of the residences either north or south of the park.
Well,
Some people don't.
as we just cited, as I have pictures to share with people later that at the UPS store, people just pull right up on the sidewalk because they don't want to walk from the parking lot. So there's all kinds of fun things happening just because people want to. So it's unfortunate. And hopefully nobody gets hurt and this helps prevent that.
Yeah, I would commend the speed team for all the work that they're doing. I like that this prioritizes children's safety, putting it by a park, which is obviously meant to be used by children, and there's in particular problems with parking and visibility. So keep up the good work.
And any ideas to when this would be installed?
I don't know Midwestern schedule, but this is not a long lead time item, so I would imagine it could be done relatively soon.
Any other discussion?
Counselor, ready for the vote? Counselor Mellon,
Yes.
Counselor Tulowitzki,
Yes.
and Counselor Schoen.
Yes. This moves us to letter C, the 2023 sidewalk replacement program. And we have all read the memo that came from staff.
Yep. Happy to report that JJ Newell is the lowest, most responsive bid. We have a good working relationship with him. And we'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them, but we're also looking forward to getting to work.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the 2023 sidewalk replacement quote from JJ Newell for a total estimated cost of $187,800 with any additional approved quantities at their quoted square foot cost of $10.40 for 5-inch thick regular sidewalks and $11 for 7-inch thick driveway sidewalks.
You get all that, Wendy?
I did, yes, I did.
I hear a second.
I would like to second.
Roll call vote, please.
Any more discussion? We're ready to roll. Counselor Mellon,
Yes.
Counselor Tulowitzki.
Yes.
Counselor Schoen.
Yes. And this moves us down to the letter D, sidewalk replacement program resolution.
President, I move that we extend the sidewalk raising program contract with Level Right Concrete through December 31.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I think in the motion should be the adoption of resolution 2114.
Oh, yes, I apologize. I move that.
Go ahead.
Amend my motion to adopt resolution 2114 to authorize the extension of the sidewalk raising program with Level Right Concrete through December 31, 2023.
Got it. Thank you, David.
Amend my second. Second, the amendment.
Roll call.
Counselor Mellon,
Yes.
Counselor Tulowitzki,
Yes.
Counselor Schoen.
Yes. And now down to letter E, 45th Street paving. The CSX right of entry agreement. Is there an agreement?
There is an agreement and we need to execute it and send it back to them with the payment of the estimated fees for their services to help us pave around their crossing of 45th Street.
So we're gonna be able to do everything at once now. There's like,
It depends. So we still don't know when we might get the go ahead from them to do. So we would still be waiting for flaggers.
have we gotten any more information on possibly sharing with flaggers that they do have during the 2 months? Time?
As far as I know, they don't even have a permit to enter
Based
the
on-
right of way. No.
This will reduce traffic flow one direction in one lane in each direction during the construction.
We haven't had a pre-construction meeting with the contractor yet, but in talking with them previously, they are looking into doing the work at night. And it would be like a continuous mill followed by the paving machine right behind. So they would be shifting traffic around and there might be like one lane closed at a time. But it would be at night.
It'll be fun while this.
Worth it in the end.
Sorry?
Worth it in the end.
Oh, you bet. All the street projects that we've talked about in town, the one that I've got the most comments about has been 45th Street. I've described as being the worst street in town and I haven't heard anybody counter that.
Yeah. Just as long as we're talking about paving, we did just get the results back from our borings that were authorized a while back on East 45th Street. And a cursory glance of those looks like it's in the same, that it could be treated the same way as West. So we'll be probably putting together a contract, a bid package to go out to get that work done as well.
That sounds like an exciting result from a boring study.
Never gets old, Counselor Julie.
Mr. President, I move to approve the temporary right of entry agreement with CSX and authorized payment of $11,400 to CSX for services associated with the agreement.
Second,
I'll second the motion, yes.
I think
roll call.
Counselor
Discussion.
Tulowitzki,
Discussion.
45th is a really important project, and for people who may not know what we're talking about, it's hard to work with railroads. And you need to follow all of the rules and pay all the fees, and this is one of those that will enable the work to be done such that the drive for everyone who lives in West States and going west or east on 45th will be as good as possible. So that's why we're doing.
The railroads would be glad to tell us they were here before 45th Street was.
Yes.
Um,
They would be happy to tell us that.
yes.
Again.
Although we use that crossing more than they do.
Yeah.
Roll call.
Ready? All right. Counselor Mellon.
Yes.
Counselor Tulowitzki.
Yes.
And Counselor Schoen.
Yes.
Another 3-0 affirmative vote.
Yes, indeed. Moving to letter F. Purchase a new 2023 Chevrolet 2500 for the street division.
Mr. President, I move to approve 2023 Chevy 2500 truck 4x4 crew cab purchase for a net price after trade-in of $51,578 from Garber Chevy to replace unit number 315.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Mellon.
Yes.
Counselor Tulowitzki.
Yes.
And Counselor Schoen.
Yes. Letter G, traffic counting and turn movement analysis. Jill, are you handling this? No, Dustin?
I can speak happily about it. At your previous meeting, you authorized staff to identify IEI as the preferred consultant and to allow us to discuss terms, conditions, and pricing for their work to redesign Ridge Road. After that meeting, and before now, we learned from NICD their very aggressive lane restriction calendar for the summer into early fall, which includes a very long and very significant lane restriction of Ridge Road at Manor Avenue. So taking Ridge Road down to 2 lanes from basically June 12th through mid-September. And it's tempting to say, well, you should do the traffic count then because that's what you want to do. Well, not really, because we don't know what we want to do. That's why we're designing it, and we want to catch as much traffic as possible, not the least. So the solution that we design is the most applicable to real life circumstances. So to do that, that's basically tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, because a traffic study usually takes place Tuesday to Thursday. Why? We have an engineer at the table who can tell you that. I just know that it's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I don't know why. So they have their subcontractor teed up to mobilize tomorrow morning and install all this if you choose to say yes to it. Now, the trick with this is that it's carved out of the work that would be reimbursable, that will be part of the grant. So we're just going to say, staff is recommending just say yes to it because we want the most accurate information as soon as possible. Because if we don't do this, which is an option, I'm not telling you it's not an option, we wouldn't be able to do the traffic counts with any measure of confidence until probably the first week of October, which is a quarter of a year from now. And I think that time is probably more valuable than the $6,000 that the federal government would reimburse us for their portion. Were this to be included in the total general services agreement that'll come back to you once the town administrative staff and Mr. Westland are comfortable with IEI's documents. So tonight, we're asking you to consider approving this small, narrow piece of work directly with IEI for a $500 markup so they can process the information, manage their subcontractor, and continue to move this project forward. So that's what we're proposing that you consider.
That's the question. I would like to, the explanation for just Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, because well, since this just came in late, we didn't discuss this at all at agenda review.
No, we didn't.
We make the motion first and then discuss it.
Well. Not sure. I think
That's the normal way.
true,
I mean, it's still.
but we need a first motion and a second, so I'm not so sure I'm going to second.
It's the rest of the second, it'll be done.
So that's why I need to ask some questions first. I know it's
Go right
out of, but because there's, first of all, if Jill can share why it'd be just Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as typical. Because when we're looking at this corridor, we're talking about a business corridor and shopping and different things, and it just like Saturdays are gonna be important, I would think, to those businesses along Ridge Road. So, and that it's a much different traffic scene. And the other thing is, since this is not during a school year, since it's in the summer, I don't know, we have already had a lot of, we've had a lot of feedback about this project in general, and I'm afraid that if we do something that people feel is not inclusive of all of the types of traffic that we actually experience, then there won't be confidence in the study, and therefore that in itself can hurt an overall project. So while it might be 3 months, I thought it was August 12th too. I thought somewhere in something that I read, it said it was be closed.
There are several phases, so it might, August 12th might be a phase where
One of the
phase
phases.
changes.
It's
Yeah,
the end of the
it's-
northern phase and then they shift to close
right.
the
It's
southern.
September 22nd, I think, is the last day.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that, like I said, if we're trying to do it quickly, I don't know what the grant, what the timetable is on that, but I think that there's quite a while to spend that grant money, correct? It's not,
Oh, no, we wouldn't be in danger of losing the grant money. We'd be in the balance is they can't do any work without knowing what the baseline traffic is.
This is step one.
right, so they can't do, they
Could
were
do
gonna go
survey.
back to.
Yeah, they could do survey work, they could do title work. They can't, they couldn't begin to do any kind of design or have any conversations with stakeholders based on the data that they've collected. Like they couldn't talk with Prompt or Mavis 24 or the police chief or the fire chief, because it would only be anecdotal, right? Like they couldn't say, well, this is what we observed on the typical section. And I understand, I think you make a good point about the high school. But the high school is a pretty known entity, variable to control for, because, I have this many parking spaces, this many students. You can talk to Dr. Heller or Mr. Trippenfeldus, and I bet they could tell you what proportion, how many parking permits they issue a year. And you could build that in to how many of those students drive to school, and how many of those students live on the, west side of Calumet Avenue, somewhere in the corridor of Ridge Road, where they would have to go on Ridge Road to go east, to go south on Columbia. So that, I think that's a pretty noble thing. It's not a random day. So it's a good point. It's something to keep in mind and factor in, but I don't know if it would be something that we need to wait to observe in real life, because we have that data. It's just a matter of them plugging it in.
What about eats? But you also have the grade school. So how much driving do we have of parents coming, we have that. I just don't know if it's a complete picture. I just, and I don't want, if you think it's gonna be adequate and the store, you'll be able to, we can have confidence in it, but I don't know, so it's summer, I don't know.
So to answer the question about Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
Mhm.
generally, those days give the best average of traffic counts and turning movements, because the weekends do skew things a little bit. And designs are based on average. And then they also will use things with trip generators. So like Dustin was talking about with the schools, there are formulas that they use that they can model how many trips would be generated by a certain usage along the corridor. I think that in this case, this is a preliminary study, and I would imagine that they would do another one
That was my other
later
question, yeah.
to both back up what we see initially, and then also to, as they get down the line, they can do another count and then use it in their model to calibrate things and then plug in some of these generators and see what happens.
You just asked my last question.
Yeah, so
Well,
I would imagine
Yeah.
that, because I agree with you that school being out does change things. I mean, I notice it when I drive to work in the morning. It's just a lot
Not-
different.
yes.
And so, but they do have ways of dealing with that, and I think they will do another study. I think that, but in order for us to start doing anything at all, we need to get this done.
This isn't the end of the all.
That's just, I wanted to make sure this wasn't the only snapshot that we were gonna see, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. President, I would move to authorize the town manager to execute a contract with IEI for a cost not to exceed $8,282 for traffic and turning movement data collection and analysis of Bridge Road corridor.
I will second the motion.
Counselor Mellon,
Yes.
Counselor Tulowitzki,
Yes.
Counselor Schoen.
Yes. And that moves us to the last, motion, the letter H, the resolution 2107, our declaratory resolution.
All right. This,
President, I can make the motion. Discussion. I move to approve resolution 2107, a resolution of the town of Munster, Indiana, declaring the designation of an economic revitalization area and preliminarily approving the deduction from assessed value of new real estate property.
I'll second the motion.
And is there discussion?
Mr. Anderson, before I made the motion.
Were you about to speak?
briefly, just for the benefit of those watching the recording or happen to be in the room, this is a bit of housekeeping. This is a principle, this abatement of residential property tax that predates everyone in the room. It was agreed on in 2012 in principle and in writing in 2013. And for a host of reasons, both practical and even more practical, it hasn't happened until now, based on the developer's preference and the mechanics of government. It is happening now. Now is the right time. And everyone's pointing in the same direction. The developer's happy, and we would be happy if this was passed, and everyone involved will be very happy once it's completed.
Yeah, I think it's important that people moving into Centennial Village to the condos are able to benefit from what their understanding was when they purchased. So appreciate getting this one completed.
There'll be one more action at a subsequent meeting. It'll be a confirmatory resolution. And before that confirmatory resolution, there'll be a public hearing. And after that, all our Ts will be crossed, all our Is will be dotted, and this will be in our rearview mirror.
So.
Nothing further.
Therefore, make a motion.
We
Sarah did.
We should.
Oh, yeah.
Counselor Tulowitzki.
Then I need to go
second
this
by-
direction.
You ready? All right,
Yes, I am.
we can go. Counselor Mellon.
Yes.
Counselor Tulowitzki.
Yes.
Counselor Schoen.
Yes.
Very good.
I don't see any reports or portfolio reports. I just lost my page. Announcements, all town council meetings will begin at 7 p.m. unless otherwise noted. The next regular meeting will be June 19th. Which is a holiday.
And there was a portfolio report
I'm sorry.
for the Lake County Solid Waste Management District Board. I'd like to give a brief update.
Oh, go ahead, please.
So both Counselor Schoen and I have been nominated to a task force committee to help review the vacation and sick leave policies of the district of Lake County Solid Waste Management Board. Maybe I'd like to have a copy of of our policy so that we may use that as a reference. I know it's in the salary ordinance, but that would be helpful.
The employee manual says, but it's, we'll have to get you the current version.
Yeah, there's often not too much that goes on in that board that is contentious. This has been through 2 board meetings, which are separated by 2 months. And so I was glad to be put on this task force committee together to come up with a good resolution. There are only 6 employees there, so it's surprising that we're having such a discussion, but I think it will set a good precedent for that body going forward.
25-minute meeting, 25-minute long meetings have become an hour and 25 minutes. at least. Thank you. So can I hear a motion to adjourn?
And then we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect,
Done.
very good. And I get to start the next meeting as well, and then we'll do the same nomination process.
Okay, pull up the agenda for the next
We'll
meeting.
let, we'll let school board representative Castro come on up.
Here I am, bring it in.
And we have plenty for you to sign, Counselor School this evening.
So I'd like to call the meeting of the Redevelopment Commission.
I believe clerk treasurer Miss has it.
Yes, I know. I very rarely get to do this. I get to do it
Oh.
once at the beginning of my term. And
Yes.
because
And
when,
I almost took that away from you.
yes, so.
Actually,
I
no offense of my taking it away from you.
I did try to keep the whole meeting, but Robert's rules said, no, I have to turn it over, so. It is 7:36. I'd like to call the redevelopment commission meeting to order. Commissioner Schoon? Are you here? Thank you. Commissioner Mellon,
Present.
Commissioner Tulowitzki,
Present.
Commissioner Kulturitis, and Commissioner Gardner. And School Board Liaison John Castro.
Here I am.
Very nice.
Clerk treasurer Miss.
We once again have a quorum, but we need to, I'm accepting nominations for President Pro Tem.
Clerk treasurer Miss, I'd like to nominate Dr. Kenneth Schoon to serve as president pro tem for the purposes of tonight's proceeding.
I'll second that motion.
Accept the nomination?
I accept the nomination. Would you call the vote?
I will. Commissioner Mellon,
Yes.
Commissioner Tulowitzki,
Aye.
and Commissioner Schoon. Very good. I turn the gavel over to you, Commissioner Schoon.
The first thing on the agenda is public comment. If anybody has comments to make to the redevelopment commission, we invite you to come up to the podium, excuse me, up to the lectern. Mr. Schaefer told me the difference. And tell us. Not hearing any comments or seeing anybody move in that direction, I'll call that part of the meeting to a close and move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. President, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I will second the motion.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Mellon,
Yes.
Commissioner Tulowitzki.
Yes.
Commissioner Schoon,
Yes. Seeing that there is no old business, that there is no new business, that there are no reports, that there are no announcements,
I move that we adjourn.
A second.
all in favor, say aye.
Very welcome.
Fine meeting as always.
Yes.
always nice to see you.
I guess they go.